Hi everyone, welcome to this tutorial. This is the Victorian Garden Topiary tutorial, part 1 of 2. Now I just took some close-up pictures just to show you the overall look of the project that I created using Wild Orchid Crafts, beautiful flowers, and some other stuff. Basically, I want to show you how to assemble it. I don't go through every detail on there because that would be your design. So what I basically did here is I bought a cone, a styrofoam cone that I cut the tip off because it was a little crooked and it was a little too tall. I found it on clearance because it was actually broken, but I used some craft glue and glued the top back on. And using this scrap piece of burlap, I was able to fit it in the square piece that I had here. And I did mention when I introduced the original video that you want to make sure that you get a pot that the rim, the opening part, the top part of the rim of the pot is not wider than the largest part of the cone, like the bottom part. So you want it to be about the same size and diameter because it will look a little disproportioned. But since I bought them separately, I thought that it would fit fine, but the pot was a little bit too big for it, but I still love it. I still think that the project came out very beautiful, and wanted it to be something that would inspire you guys to make something similar. So I used hot glue, and I have mentioned before not to use hot glue on styrofoam because it can melt your styrofoam, and it still does. But I needed something quick that would hold it down, so I did use a little bit of hot glue here. Actually, I used kind of a lot to have everything hold down. The fabric helped tons. It gave it such a great background and something that the flowers and all the things that I put on there would adhere really well. I still have this flap here because I cut off the excess of the burlap, and I just used just a thin strip of hot glue. So I bought this set that was recommended to me by many of you guys, so thank you so much. This is a glue gun helper kit. And if you guys are looking for one, I can custom order one for you guys. Not a problem. I may just order a few. But it's a silicone, looks like a silicone-based type of material. So it comes with a mat. It comes with 3 fingertips to help fit whatever size finger you have, and some other little tools. Really cool little deal. I like it. So it helped me a lot to be able to just basically press down. It doesn't stick. I don't feel the heat at all through the fingertips at all. But it helped me create this really clean seam of the burlap onto the styrofoam cone. So I really liked how it worked out, and it didn't burn my fingers at all. I was just so pleased with it. So I'm just trying to close the very tip there. I'll end up trimming the excess burlap later on. So the bottom part, I just took off the excess burlap and just brought it all the way down to the bottom of the cone. And I did create a circular cutout shape of burlap, and I did glue it down to the bottom there because I didn't want the styrofoam to show still. So I cut this dowel I found at, I think it was Michael's. So I did already create a hole. I just pierced it and created a little cone shape, like right here where the entrance is, right there. And that's so that I can pour some glue in it to kind of hold it in there. So this is kind of an eyeball kind of a thing as far as piercing your dowel. There's no science that I know of on how to do it except to stick it in there as straight as possible. So the tip or the opening of the bottle was really clogged, so I had to open it and actually pour the glue in there. So I just wiggled it in there so I can get the glue down up in there so that it would hold and adhere. So I let it dry overnight, and then I just here's the circular piece of burlap that I was telling you about. So I just glued that down all the way around. So here's some of the pink paisley paper, and I'm sorry for the blur, you guys. I don't have a very good camera, and I'm still hunting for a really good one to be able to do editing and stuff that'll coincide with programs that I have. But I was originally going to use the strips of paper. Let me pause this really quick. I was going to use these strips of paper because my first idea was to have pictures on the topiary itself, along with ribbons and lace and flowers and whatnot. Still, I created it at the end, it being not something that I could put pictures on, but I think I will be looking for a larger cone because these are paper ribbons that I wanted to have it flow from the very top of the topiary all the way down, and then have small like headshot photos of my family on there. So that's why I did cut these in strips, but I ended up not using it again because the cone to me was a little bit too small. These are the paints that I used. Oops, sorry. So this is the clay pot I found at Craft Warehouse. It was on sale, but I ended up painting over it, and I did a streaky effect with some of the light blue paint and the cream paint, which is a warm white, I believe. And I'll have a supply list on my blog and at the second video tutorial for this series here. So this is what it looks like. I ended up doing a crackle medium and then used the pink paint and did that crackle finish. So I really like how the crackle looked on there and it being pink. You can do any color you want, of course. But I used old paper distress ink and I just rubbed it around so that it would highlight the cracks. I ended up later on doing a little bit of vintage photo, but real lightly on a semi-dried blending tool, just to highlight a little bit more of the cracks. But I didn't show that in the video, but I am just letting you know. So I just kind of rub it in. I do this all the time when I'm putting distress ink on something that is not so porous, like paper. So this is what I did, is I recycled some of the floral green bricks that I had in another pot that I cleared out. And what you want to do is basically have all your pieces of the brick, because you have to cut it. You'll eventually have to cut it, and you may want to do this on the floor or outside because it's very linty. So if you have asthma, this might not be a good option. There's styrofoam bricks that you can use too, so be very careful. And so I cut a piece of the brick and I set it down and I squeezed it down in there because that's really what you want, is to have a really nice tight fit of your bricks in there so that the dowel will have really good strong support underneath the moss that will be on the top part. So you just want to give it a nice tight fit in there. So I did cut lots of little pieces, well, not little, but I did cut good strips and chunks to fill in because of the circular shape that the pot is. See how it's kind of tight? So it ends up squeezing. If you've not touched this before, if you go to the store, touch it, you can get a feel of what I'm talking about. I trimmed a little bit. The one was too tall, so I trimmed a little bit of it off there. And be very careful because the craft knife or this utility knife is so sharp. So I did actually just pour glue down on there because I wanted the next piece of the brick to fit really well in there. So I just pressed it down, trying to make it as even as possible. And then using some corsage pins, really extra long corsage pins, I did pierce them down in there to kind of hold things in place. But there is some floral pins that you can use that is particularly for floral arrangements and whatnot, and you can use those too. Those probably would be better, but this is what I had on hand, so this is what I use. And you can also use toothpicks and tips of skewers. So this is the other end of the dowel that I'm going to be piercing into the foam bricks there. But I just went old school and did carpentry work here and just shaved it and made it a pointy tip. My husband was like, "You better be careful." Yeah, he's cut himself many times, so I was like, I'll be fine. But yeah, be careful and don't have your fingers too close to where you're shaving if you end up doing it this way. If not, have your husband take it to his rotary sander or whatever he may have in his workshop and yeah, have him do it for you maybe. So this is what I use, a floral moss matte